notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Hi guys, it's Steve here. Thanks for joining me on my video. This is going to be a response to one of the most troubling videos I think I've ever seen on YouTube. I put a link in the description, so I encourage you, once you're finished watching this video, check that one out. Now I'm going to insert clips here so that you can get a taste of the brilliant work done in that video. But let me set the stage for you. On Wednesday, August the 19th, there was a group of Lutherans who were gathered together in Minneapolis, voting on several things, but one of which was whether to recognize same-sex relationships. So as they were holding this conference to make this vote, God sent a miracle tornado. And as you can see by that tent, God was pissed. Man, he blew that thing over. God. And then also the steeple. Did you see the before? Let me show it to you again. Here's before. And here's after. Now some people may say that it's an accident because the steeple was the weakest part of the structure. It was at the highest elevation on the church. But in order for you to come to that conclusion, you have just got to ignore all of the evidence that God was demonstrating his anger against these people. Now let's watch the next clip. Now, can you believe it? Even after God ripped that tent down in that whirlwind, these people still voted to recognize same-sex couples. And by one vote. I mean, it almost makes me want to say, God, why couldn't you have just killed one of them? I mean, you drowned infants during the Great Flood. So who cares if you killed just one of them to stop the vote? You know, and if you didn't want to kill any, then maybe the tornado could have ripped the limbs off like a dozen people. You could have taken their limbs and spelled out words on the ground like, God hates fags, or something like that. That would have shown them. Now, this video does an excellent job in documenting God's anger against the Lutherans that day. But I'm going to take it a step further, because not only was there a storm in Minneapolis that destroyed this tent and I mean just knocked that steeple down, but throughout the Midwest that same day there were several tornadoes and storms that did damage. And let me show you the other things that God was pissed at that day. See this guy in this video? Well, not more than 3 days earlier, before the storm destroyed his house, he and his wife were sitting in the living room of that very house watching Brokeback Mountain. Now some of you may say this is just a coincidence, but come on. Brokeback Mountain, 3 days later, his house destroyed. How could you say that that's a coincidence? Now, I did some research, and the owners of this home, I couldn't find that they did anything that God would be displeased with. So I have to just assume that this was just a random chance event. But it will be easy for you to recognize the difference between God's intent and just some random act. Let me show you those two pictures. First of all, this is God's intent. This is random. Once again, design, chance. I mean, when you look at these photos, it's obvious, you know, the difference between God's intended destruction and just something that just randomly happened. I mean, when I look at this, I can see it, and it's almost, it just sends shivers up and down my spine. It's a little bit eerie and creepy, don't you think? Now, not only did God destroy houses, but he was also pretty upset at a couple of schools because that same day he hit 2 schools. Here's one of them. Now, I don't have any evidence to confirm this, but I believe that this particular classroom is the one in which they taught evolution. I mean, look at what God has done to this place because they believe that we came from monkeys and we were not a unique design of God. God will not be mocked. Now, here's another school that God hit that same day. I can only imagine the debauchery that must have taken place in that particular room for God to show his anger. I don't know what it was, but it must have been something of the most vile form. Now this photo shows 2 guys hugging in front of what used to be a church. But see, there's no church there any longer. 2 men hugging in front of a church. Well, I think you and I both know what was happening in that building. If God is willing to show this kind of anger towards those who support homosexuals, what do you think he's going to do to the fags themselves? And there's one in particular on YouTube that I'm very concerned about. Prof, I beseech you, leave your gay-loving ways. Rip up your poster of Keanu Reeves. Leave that long-term monogamous relationship that you're in. Go find a woman with whom you have no sexual attraction and be with her. And I urge you to do this quickly, because if you don't, I'm afraid God's judgment is going to be poured out on you. Now, what will this look like? I don't know. Maybe one of your friends will lose their job in the next couple of months. Maybe a restaurant that you went to one time, there'll be a grease fire in the kitchen. Or maybe God will send a hurricane to that place in Florida that you and your partner went that one time and committed the most vile acts of debauchery. Please, Prof, I'm urging you.